Alright, so in this next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this wheel well that's going to be inserted into the wheel and also connected to the axle. So I'm going to go ahead and hide a few of these things right now just so you can see what our end result here is that we're looking at. So this is what I want to make. Actually, we've already made this, so I pretty much just want to make this object. So it's pretty easy. It'll go pretty quick. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'm actually going to go ahead and say hide unselected. And then let's bring back our reference images. Okay. So this is my wheel that we made in the previous tutorial. So just like anything else, we are going to start off with the cylinder because that looks like the logical thing to do. And if I go to my left viewport, I'm actually going to turn my wireframe mode, and I'm going to move my cylinder that I just made right into here. So what I can do from there is I can go ahead and convert this to an editable poly. So I can take the vertices and bring them back here. And I'm actually going to take this front part and just move these back a little bit as well. Perfect. So when you create a cylinder, the default number of edges is 18. So actually, I'm going to take a few steps back. Sorry about that. And you can bump up the number of edges here if you want. 12 looks pretty good to me. So now I'll go ahead and convert this to my editable poly. And I'll turn my wireframe, I'll go to my vertex selection, and I can just drag this over. Okay, so now that I have that created, what I want to do is, if I'm looking at my reference image here, I can see that the front of this is beveled out just a little bit. So what I'm actually going to do is I need some geometry on the front here. But before I do that, let's actually go ahead and create a little bevel to get that look. So I'm going to take that front polygon, I'm going to bring it out, bring it back in just a little bit, that looks good. And now we have a nice bevel. So when I eventually add my turbo smooth to this object, I want to make sure that this face smooths properly. So I'm going to go down to my inset. I'm going to drag in these this polygon all the way. If I hold down my control key and select vertex, that'll change it to a vertex selection, so I don't have to go back and re-select all of them. And I'm going to go ahead and weld all these together. So you're going to see that it goes from different vertices selected, 12 vertices selected to weld, and it just has a vertex 37 selected, so it's singular. So the reason why we did that was so we can have some nice geometry here on the front for when we turbo smooth it. So if you go into your left viewport and you turn on our wireframe view here, we can start to move this back just a little bit to make sure it's not interfering with any of the other geometry on the front of our wheel. So that's looking pretty good so far. The next thing we want to do is we want to add on kind of like this rounded part here. I know it's kind of hard to see in the reference image, so you're going to have to use a little bit of your creative license to make sure this looks good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, I'm going to add a sphere, and with this I want to make sure that, sorry, let me do it one more time. I want my sphere to also have 12 segments, so it matches up nicely. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rotate this around 90 degrees. And let's go to my top viewport here and let's move this right over. This looks good. Awesome. So what I want to do is actually, I don't need half of the cylinder or half of the sphere. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that, but the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that it's the exact same size as my cylinder that I made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and align it center to center. I'll drag this out a little bit. And it actually looks pretty good. So I'm at like 11.9. If you want to just do 12 for both of them, that should be a good plan. All right, so let's go ahead and convert this to an editable poly. We're going to take our vertex selection just this half and say delete. Make sure you don't do any more than that, otherwise you're going to run into some trouble. So what we also want to do is we want to take this front face and we actually want to make that flat. So by selecting those polygons, I can actually go down here to make planar, and that'll go ahead and straighten that right out. So moving right along, let's turn this back off. So now what I want to do is I want to combine these two objects here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this front polygon. This is a really important step because we're going to go ahead and we're going to target weld some of these vertices together. So let's bring this out just a tad bit more. Let's go back to our polygon, let's delete that. And then what we want to do is we want to move this front piece as close as we can. And that looks good. Once you have that lined up, go ahead and attach this front sphere. And that will allow us to go into our vertex mode and do target weld to go from one vertex to the next. So I'm going to go around my entire object here. And if you notice, I'm going from the body, my cylinder, to the sphere. Alright, sorry, my computer's freezing a little bit on me here. Just a couple more. Alright, awesome. So that's looking pretty good. Now what we want to do is, let's go back to my left viewport here. I'm going to bring this back in just a little bit. So as you can see, it's not lining up super well to our reference image, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and start doing some refining here. So we know that we have a lip that's around the outside of the shape here. So what I want to do is I'm going to select this edge. I'm going to hold down Shift, Control, and double click on the edge that's parallel to it. And I'm going to go ahead and chamfer that. So by chamfering, I'm going to get another set of polygons here. So if I say OK and I hold on Control and change this to a polygon selection, it should allow you to just select this one ring. So what I want to do there is I want to go ahead and extrude this out, but I want to extrude this by polygon, or actually I'm sorry, by local normal. And that's going to go ahead and take those polygons as a group and extrude those out that way. So let's go ahead and pare this down just a tad. And I also want to push this back. Maybe rotate will do it for me. Alright, that's good there. We can do some refining to that later. And then I'm going to go over here to my front set of polygons. And I'm going to inset these in. Actually, before I do that too, yeah, we can go ahead and do that. It's fine. I'm going to go ahead and inset these in, and then let's do a nice extrude back, and that's where my axle is going to sit. Awesome, so this is looking good so far. Now, a couple of other things that I want to do. I want to add a nice little lip here around the edge. So if you want to take these pieces and extrude these out just a little bit. We can get that nice detail in there as well. Awesome. So this is definitely looking better. From here, what you can do is you can start doing some fine editing. So if you want to mess around with the shape a little bit, that's totally up to you, whatever you want to do. Oops. Make sure in your vertex selection, I'm just going to push these back a tad. I don't want it as rounded as that. Awesome. And now let's go ahead and add our Turbo Smooth modifier. And this is looking pretty good. So if you go ahead and turn on Isoline Display, go back to your editable poly and show end result, you can go into your let's see, we want to go down to selection. Let's see. Editable poly, edges. There we go. We're going to go down to our Swift Loop tool. We want to actually go right over here. And we just want to harden up some of these edges. So just so we can maintain some of this geometry. Awesome. Let's turn on our wireframe mode. And I'm also going to add a couple back here just to clean that up as well. So this is looking pretty good. And once you're satisfied with the shape, you can go ahead and take a cylinder. Oops, really not that big. I'll rotate this 90 degrees. I like to just go ahead and align it like this. It's obviously far too big for whatever our axle is going to be. So I can just scale that down to whatever works best. Line it up with wherever my extrusion stops, and that's going to be your axle. So what you can do when you're done is you can assign your material and your color. Change your object color here, just to make it consistent throughout your project, and you are good to go.